everybody. I just wanted to give you all some insight into, how I was feeling and what I was thinking, what was going on during the closing arguments. Just, I guess, from my point of view. I remember that I was glad that it was over. It had been a long 9 days, probably the longest 9 days of my life up to that point. My days would start at like 4 a.m. if I wanted to shave, which, to be honest with you, I shouldn't have done. In 9 days, I probably had a total of, maybe 27 to 30 hours of sleep. And believe me, that's not an exaggeration. I was physically and mentally exhausted. I actually had a physical reaction towards the end of the trial. I was sitting there one day, and my whole body began to tingle, like if your arm or your leg had gone to sleep, and it like started at my feet, and it worked its way all the way up through my body, and it was just my whole body was like tingling really, really bad. And I don't know why, but my hands seemed to feel the worst. And this sounds kind of crazy, I know, but like a day or two later, all of the skin on the palms of my hands peeled off. I don't know what that was, but it had to have been some sort of a physical reaction to what was going on. But something else that stuck out in my mind was before Tina Griffin started her closing and before I came into the courtroom, the bailiffs wouldn't let my family into the courtroom because they packed all of the first 4 or 5 rows of seats directly behind me with uniformed police officers. So my family was forced to sit in the back, the very back rows. And what's crazy about that is I read an appellate case years later where a guy actually got a new trial based in part because that's exactly what the state had done in his case. The court in that case recognized it was an unfair and prejudicial thing to do to the defendant. When I read that, I thought, these prosecutors across the state have learned these tricks and games to manipulate juries. I don't think it's a coincidence. They did it in a case in McLean, in McLean County, and then did it, in a case in Chicago. It just seems like these dishonest cops and corrupt prosecutors use the same universal playbook. Personally, I thought Frank Pitzel's closing was terrible. I mean, he had failed to introduce into evidence the witnesses and the evidence to counter the BS that, Tina Griffin was putting out. I remember he came back to the table and whispered to me, what do you think? And my response was, is that it? And he said, yeah. And he again, asked me, what do you think? And I remember saying, I'm dead. Even though in my heart of hearts, I tried to hold on to the, my belief that it was impossible to find me guilty for something I didn't do. I just kept telling myself, no way, this can happen. I thought about this a lot. I think the only people who knew the truth in that courtroom and during the whole trial and especially during the closing arguments was Tina Griffin, Charles Reiner, Dan Katz, Rick Barkus, me and my wife Tammy. And in reality, only Tammy and I actually cared about the outcome and the truth. It was a long 9 days of people that I knew, people that I hardly knew, people that I didn't know, getting up there and testifying. And then, when Tina Griffin did her closing arguments, it was the final humiliation, I guess, of the whole process. And it's, it really angers me, and it's hard for me to relive these things. I know I need to, but it's really hard, and it angers me so much because so much of the stuff that she was saying, she knew wasn't true. And it's a terrible commentary on the justice system have people like her and Charles Reinert that so many people don't believe in the justice system. They don't trust in the justice system. They don't believe in attorneys, and it's because of people like that. So that's how I felt, and what I said earlier about, I had to get up and shave at 4 o'clock in the morning. I cut my hair, I shaved, I did all this stuff. I shouldn't have done that because that wasn't me. I should have just left my hair the length that it was. I should have just kept my beard and just, let the jury see who I really was. I mean, and Tina Griffin took advantage of it. She pointed out to the jury that, I'd cut my hair and I'd shaved and did all this stuff like, I was trying to be dishonest and deceitful, and I probably shouldn't have done that. So that's really how I felt about the closing arguments. But it was tough. It was really hard. It was really hard for me, But before I go, I want to give a shout out to a few people that have really been helping us out a lot. The people that have been transcribing the podcast have really put in a lot of time and effort, and I'm really grateful for you guys, and I just want you to know that I really appreciate you. So Melinda Wargacki, Cathy McElhaney, Caywood, Yamnik, Jinger, Fiola, Pamela Westby, we appreciate you guys so much, and I appreciate you personally more than you probably know. It means everything to me, so thank you. And I want to give a final shout out to a student of Miss Wargacki's, Stuart Hilton. He made a flyer, and I think Tammy put it up on our website. He made a flyer for about my case, and I just want you to know, Stuart, I really appreciate that. It means the world to me that you would take the time and put the effort into putting that together, and it was awesome. If I could give you any advice, I would just say if this sort of thing is something that you find, the forensic sciences part of your education there, if it's something that you really find interesting and something you really like, it'd be a great thing to get into. You can really make a difference in people's lives. I mean, people like me live in a wrongful conviction, need good, honest people in that field. And on the other side of that coin, victims and family members of victims, need good, honest people in that field. So you could really make a difference. So stick to it, man, and thank you for doing that for me. I'll just end this here and just let everyone know that, I really appreciate you listening and being a part of this journey for me. I mean, it's very important for me, I guess, that people know